Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're gonna take a deep dive look at how Yu-Gi-Oh was played in the summer of 2014, now commonly referred to as h.a.t format. The name h.a.t format comes from the deck that won the 2014 WCQ in North America at the hands of the late Corey McDuffie. The deck he piloted was Hands for H, Artifacts for A, and Traptrix for T, abbreviating into h.a.t. This is at the tail end of the XYZ era. Pendulums were released shortly thereafter, so if you enjoy the Rank 4 toolbox, this is the best format for you. If you come from Master Duel or Modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, luckily this format is very easy to get into. The Beware of Traptrix structure deck has nearly every card you need to complete the base core of the Hands, Artifacts, and Traptrix deck. So, what are the decks of h.a.t format? As we talked about in the introduction, you have the Artifact Traptrix variant, which utilizes either the Hands for Hat, Karakuri for Cat, Curry Bandit for Cat, not to be confused with Cat, and the Fire Fists for Fat. To touch more a bit about the Artifact Traptrix deck, either you could use the Hands, the Fire Fists, or either Curry Bandit or Karakuri as a supplementary engine to your deck. This deck is really just a pile of good cards. All of these cards are pretty standalone. Sure, for the Hands, you would need to play both of them, usually in pairs of 2 or 3 copies, so you have enough grind game with them. With the Fire Fist cards, you need to play some amount of Tanky Bear, perhaps Gorilla and Wolf Bark to get max advantage off of them. But what's so good about Curry Bandit and Karakuri for the Cat deck is that they're standalone good cards. Karakuri is a pot of greed on normal summon by 3-bitting it off and skipping your turn. And Curry Bandit lets you mill 5 in the end phase and grab back any spell or trap, fueling up the graveyard with artifacts and Traptrix for your Call of the Haunteds or perhaps Soul Charge pushes. Currently, the deck with Artifact Traptrix that sees the most play is the Cat deck with Karakuri. The issue with Curry Bandit is that you kinda need to build your deck around it. If you've played Edison format before, you know the importance of having good standalone cards and not forcing your deck to be comprised of just 2 or 3 card combos. Another control deck you could play is the Geargia deck. This deck focuses on making Geargia X as well as other rank 4s by using armor as a +1 every single turn and trap cards to control the field. At the time, this was the best control deck ever printed. However, with limitations done to the deck, seeing as Spellbook of Judgment was banned and Spellbook of Fate was limited, the deck is not as powerful as it was in 2013. Still, the deck is very strong in h.a.t format. Having tutors such as Spellbook of Secrets and Blue Boy being able to grab your Spellbook engine, as well as not being special summon reliant, so cards like Max C does not affect you at all. This is one of the better control decks if you want to play a game plan where you draw a bunch of cards and use spell card to disrupt your opponent. Now, we cannot talk about h.a.t format without mentioning the Soul Charge decks, the first one being Mermails. Mermail is the best mid-rangey Soul Charge deck, where you have a bunch of trap cards in your deck so you can stop at any moment without feeling that you lose the game. The Mermail deck plays a lot more defensive cards than something like Infernity, Sylvan, or Dragon Rulers, so you have more stopping points against Max C, giving you an edge there, seeing as it's still a Soul Charge combo deck, so you can do very large, impressive fields and push through what they have. This is probably one of the more impressive Soul Charge decks, being Sylvan's. Opening Lone Fire with Soul Charge gives you a wide array of options, being able to combat fields but also create your own. And the Excavate mechanic is very interesting. This deck being able to play key starters like Curry Bandit gives it a leg up against Infernity and Dragon Rulers, and its ceiling is much higher than that of Mermail's. However, it does lose harder to Max C. At the 2014 World Championship, with severe limitations being done to Mermail, and Sylvan having a lot of TCG exclusives, the best combo deck at that event was Infernity. Even in h.a.t format, this deck is very strong, being able to set up multiple Infernity breaks along with the Soul Infernity barrier, while also utilizing the rank 4 toolbox to its full extent, having long sequences of looping Laval Chain, direwolfing your own cards to bring it all back with Soul Charge just to get more searches off of Archfiend, sending up the more trap cards. If you enjoy the rank 4 toolbox along with a combo deck, this deck is just for you. Since its release in 2013, Dragon Rulers have dominated the Yu-Gi-Oh metagame up until their banning in 2015. This deck is very strong, being able to utilize Soul Charge along with cards like Curry Bandit in the Mythic Ruler deck, fueling up your graveyard and allowing for big Soul Charge pushes, or playing the deck with the Heretics and instead focusing on making a ton and having a more streamlined deck where you don't focus on milling well with Curry Bandit or Karakuri and instead focus on using your hand in the strongest way possible and then following up with a Soul Charge. Dragon Rulers were so powerful that you can even utilize them in other decks. Lightsworn, with the power of Eclipse Wyvern, could search Judgment Dragon out from the deck. Having Soul Charge, fueling up the graveyard from the Lightsworn cards, bringing it all back for a very strong push, makes this the best mill deck in h.a.t format. If you enjoy the control aspect, but spellbooks are not for you, Bujin is a great option. Bujin Yamato allows you to cycle through a new Bujin every single turn at the end phase. Protecting Yamato is the game plan. Having cards like Bujin Hurume to allow for explosive rank 4 plays with Bujin Carnation as a pseudo Soul Charge within the deck gives the deck longevity. If you enjoy the artifact cards but don't want to commit to the other cards we recently talked about, Constellars is a good option. Utilizing the artifacts along with Call of the Haunted, giving you a card that you can bounce back every single turn with Pallades and keep using the artifacts on your opponent's turn, perhaps putting them under a Scythe lock, or Moltag popping their cards incrementally every single turn, is exactly how Constellars wins its games. If you enjoy the sweet taste of victory, Madolche might just be the deck for you. Even years after h.a.t format, Tiramisu was commonly referred to as the best rank 4 ever printed, non-target shuffle back 2 of your opponent's cards and recycling your own resources, gives this deck a very strong push and one of the best starters in the format in Angeli. Now for the rogue category, the first deck is Evilswarms. Similar to Bujin's, where you summon Yamato, in Evilswarm you summon Ophion and use Ophion's effect to control the game state. Particularly against decks with high-level monsters such as Dragon Rulers or Sylvans, Ophion locking out their special summoning is how you win most of your games. If you want to take advantage of Heavy Storm's banning and use a card that perfectly punishes your opponent for overextending with trap cards that are not easily chainable, Harpies is the deck for you. This deck can play Icarus Attack along with the obvious Harpie field spell to pop your opponent's spells and traps, and controlling the game with the rank 4 toolbox, seeing as Chandler can bring out Harpie's pet dragon directly from your deck and make a Draco sack on turn 1. Resolving the spell card Hysteric Sign gives you almost an immediate auto win, seeing as it searches you 3 Harpies in the end phase, giving you a lot of recursion and follow-up for the next turn. The most interesting h.a.t format deck based on lore is the Noble Knights. This is an equip-focused deck where you want to make your Noble Knight XYZ monsters into large indestructible objects beating down your opponent. For the more casual combo player, you have Karakuris. As a standalone deck, they're a bit power crept in h.a.t format. However, you could definitely play these cards with the Geargia deck, seeing as Geargia and X can search your Karakuris, and making Bure and Buredo with your Geargia monsters gives you very large pushes as opposed to just having the rank 4 toolbox in the Geargia deck. With the Dragon Rulers all being limited to 1, this deck is a lot weaker than it was in 2013. But you still have access to a lot of great synchro monsters in the form of Vajrayana being able to climb up to a level 8, or with Gay Dirge being able to search you Sephiroth or Baby Rock to continue cobbing from there and making large fields with Soul Charge. Scraps finally received their field spell in the form of Scrap Factory. This is an interesting control deck where you destroy your own cards to gain advantage. Dark World is the best draw deck of the format. If you like drawing cards, this deck is just for you. Being able to utilize cards like Deck Devastation Virus and Eradicator, Epidemic Virus being good against almost every single meta deck. Another deck from Yu-Gi-Oh's history being Inzektor, winning the 2012 World Championships, again gets new light with this format. This is an OTK deck where you use Inzektor Hornet and Dragonfly to destroy your opponent's entire field and build your own with Soul Charge. And for my favorite rogue deck, we have Blackwings. Blackwings received support in Dragons of Legend in the form of Squall and a couple of other cards that were printed throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history after Edison, as well as being able to use cards like Icarus Attack, punishing your opponent for overcommitting to the board with cards they cannot chain. If you're coming from Edison format, you can definitely take your Blackwing deck, perhaps upgrading it with some of the new cards that were released, and still do well at your local tournaments. Now that was a lot to take in. There's a lot of decks in h.a.t format, but what are the best ones? h.a.t format is not nearly as explored as Edison format is. So I'm sure we'll see some new innovations in the coming months or years as this format gets more explored and played by more people and more large tournaments happen. But to break it down in something that resembles a tier list, this is what I would consider our decks that are able to win a major event. You have the artifact Traptrix variants, be it either with hands, Curry Bandit, Card D, or the Fire Fist cards. You have Spellbooks, Geargia, Mermail, and Sylvans. These are the decks that are good enough to top a major event, and you should expect to see these in Top Cut. We have Infernity, Dragon Ruler variants in the form of Mythics or Heretics, Bujin, and Madolche. That's not to say these decks cannot win a major event, or decks in the last category cannot win a major event, but it's more so about probability. The issue with some of these decks is that either they are underpowered, or they are very powerful, with Soul Charge and a lot of other combos that they can do, but they're just weaker than the decks in the best category, seeing as they have either consistency issues or power issues with the control decks. And with the combo decks, they lose to Floodgates or Maxi a lot harder than the other decks do. This is the final category of decks. These decks are reserved for local or regional sized events, although they could sneak into Top Cut at any of the major events. These are Constellars, Lightsworn, Evilswarm, Harpie, Blackwing, Karakuri, Noble Knight, Dragunity, Scrap, Inzektor, and Dark World. I hope you guys enjoyed the deep dive look at h.a.t format. If there's any other formats you guys would like to see me talk about, let me know in the comments.